All right. Are we ready? Is that we're just waiting to resolve?
Do you have the mouse? I do. Oh.
Okay. Okay. Well, good morning. We are going to have a great discussion today to kind of shape the outlines of the committee's thinking and the planning board and planning staff's approach to equity issues, which is a major component of the general plan and has been a rising theme in land use planning for us in the county for a number of years. Certainly was a big topic in our work on the Veers Mill Corridor Master Plan, and a lot of the transportation elements of that I think are, as the memo outlines, our focus on ensuring that some of the older parts of the county that have become really home to lower income communities that weren't designed as urban areas but are being used as urban areas. We're having to really rethink and invest in the infrastructure there so that they're safe. That's been a big part of our planning agenda on the transportation side. Housing is a huge issue. And we have legislation at the council, as I'm sure you know, that'll be introduced tomorrow that will call for a racial equity analysis as part of our land use planning process. And so we are, I think that is part of the general plan already, but this conversation is going to help us understand some of the points that we might touch on as we conduct those kinds of analyses in the future. So the planning staff has prepared a memo for the board for us, for the committee, that walks through the issues, and we'll get a chance to hear from our team today. So why don't I turn it over to the planning staff? I think, well, Linda, is there anything you wanted to say to kick it off, or no? All right. We'll just get into the conversation through the memo. So, Gwen Wright.
Thanks. For the record, I'm Gwen Wright. I'm the planning director. With me is, of course, Casey Anderson, chair of the planning board, but I wanted to introduce the other staff who you'll be hearing from. Tanya Stern is our deputy planning director. She's been with us about a year now. Robin Brittingham is our HR manager and has been very involved in a lot of our training activities. Maureen Jackson is my special assistant, and she's been helping in the effort related to equity in our general plan, but also on our work separately to really establish an equity agenda for planning. You're also going to hear from Mike Riley, who is the director of our Parks Department, and Jay Cole, who is the division chief, who is going to be talking about how equity is tied in with some of our planning for parks as well. So just briefly.
Let me note that Asim Nagam is here, the director of the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Appreciate you being here, Director.
So we have, even before we really launched the general plan, we started working on an equity agenda for planning. And that equity agenda for planning, I think, is important because it really specifically tackles the issue of institutional racism, and we are really looking both internally at our organization and externally at the work that we do with communities. We recognize and know that we're building on a long history of land use decisions in Montgomery County, and Casey's going to go over some of that history. They have historically created exclusionary neighborhoods, but in the latter part of the 20th century, there was really an attempt to provide a greater number of housing opportunities, at least for a diverse group of residents. And if you are interested in any of the history, we also have Rebecca Ballo here, who is our historic preservation supervisor, and Rebecca and her team have been looking at some of the historic covenants and restrictions that created some of these exclusionary neighborhoods. We know that in developing an equity agenda for planning that we will basically never be done. It is ongoing. It will require constant attention. We will have to be constantly aware. So a big part of what we're doing is trying to make sure that we're raising our awareness so that, 2 years from now, when we have completed our work on the general plan, and we've said, okay, we've taken care of equity. Well, we haven't taken care of equity. It's always going to be an issue that we need to think about. We are really committed to addressing and confronting the legacy of racism and its ongoing effects, and really addressing issues of racial equity in all aspects of our work. One of the reasons this is so important is because of the diversity in Montgomery County today. As you all know, as of 2016, people of color comprised 55.5% of the county's population, and our trends report showed that in the last 25 years, our Hispanic population increased by 258%, the Asian population by 153%, and the Black population by 108%. This is a really interesting map, which is, again, from our trends report. This was the county in 1990. The dark blue is white predominant, and the light blue is white majority. And you can see that in 1990, that was really the whole county. By 2016, we have much less of those dark blue and light blue colors, and what's very interesting is the yellow, which is no predominant group, and meaning that we are really a very mixed county. We do not have large tracts of land that are people of color only. We have large areas that are actually a great mixture of many different ethnicities. And that actually is very dynamic, and it makes us, I think, a very special and unique county. So I'm going to turn it over to Casey, and he's going to talk a bit about the background and history of how we got to where we are today.
The history of the suburbs started with utopian ideas. In some cases, socialists or people who wanted to create new communities to allow working class people or poor people to escape what they saw as the downsides of living in congested urban areas. Cities were associated with overcrowding, disease, crime, and the initial concepts that led to what we think about in the suburbs today were actually very motivated by progressive ideals. But very quickly, those were turned on their head because the appeal of the suburbs and the recognition that they could be attractive places to live, and also some of the ideas in land use and transportation lent themselves to segregating and isolating people by class and by race. So by the early 20th century, when some of the neighborhoods in Montgomery County were developed along the early suburban pattern, people like Francis Newlands and the Lees developed neighborhoods in some cases with the explicit idea of excluding African Americans, Jews, other people who were considered to be less desirable into specific parts of the county and not into others. But I think that it's interesting that even if you consider the history of that one family, the E. Brooke Lee and his real estate empire, that even within that family there was division. And by the 50s and 60s, E. Brooke Lee's daughter and son-in-law, the Skulls, became leading political opponents of the Lee machine, and also stood with the NAACP and some of the activists like Edith Throckmorton and Roscoe Nix to really push back against some of the very reactionary ideas, not only in racial politics, but also in land use planning more generally. So I think the history of Montgomery County's development of the suburbs is very similar to the history of the American story of the suburbs. It's a history of exclusion, but it's also a history that has some nuance to it. And by the time, if you want to go to the next slide, by the time we hit the later part of the later mid part of the 20th century when the general plan was being written. While the general plan does not mention racial or social or economic equity explicitly, many of the ideas, particularly with respect to affordable housing, which prefigured the MPDU law and the discussion about development of HOC and affordable housing more generally, were fought out along explicitly racial lines. And that led ultimately, in the latter half of the 20th century to, in the early 70s, the creation of the MPDU program. Some of the ideas which were well-intentioned turned out to be wrong-headed. Urban renewal in the 60s and 70s turned out to not only displace many communities, but to produce a pattern of development in some communities that were intended to benefit their residents that actually backfired. And today we live with the legacy of that in the distrust that sowed with many of the communities that urban renewal was trying to help. So with that, I would turn it over to Molly. But I would just say we have two actual authors in Montgomery County who've written books recently. I'd commend to you on this subject, even though they're not specifically about Montgomery County. One is Dead End by Ben Ross, which covers much of the same territory as The Color of Law, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but is, I think, a much quicker read, and also talks specifically about Chevy Chase and some of the Montgomery County examples, as well as the national pattern of racial and economic division. And the other one is a book about the suburbs by Amanda Colson Hurley, who talks about some of the utopian experiments with the suburbs and efforts to try to make the suburban project intentionally about trying to bring people together with mixed success. But I think that both those books have a lot of relevance to our discussion.
Amanda Hurley?
Discussion here. Beg your pardon?
Amanda Hurley.
Amanda Hurley.
Oh, okay. She's a Montgomery County resident.
That's right. And with that, I turn it over to Molly.
Radical Suburbs, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Name of it. Okay, Molly, you're on.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Glenn, for allowing me to speak. My name is Colleen Jackson.
Please, pull it a little closer.
I'm a little short.
You're on TV, don't forget, so.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I wanted to state that I'm actually from Wheaton. I grew up in Wheaton. I went to Albert Einstein, and this is my hometown. And I have experienced through my upbringing that we can't change the past, but we can make history. We can continue to evolve and learn from the past, from history, and make strides in the right direction. Once we know better, we can do better. And so we've been doing a lot of active listening, attending the courageous conversations that the county council and the county executive have been hosting, and have been doing a lot of active listening and active learning in the process. This is not something that's terribly new to Robin and myself, because we also chair the Black History Month Committee and have produced a lot of great events for the month of February. And if you have a chance, I encourage you to come. As far as our work is concerned, though, we've done a lot of things to prepare and build infrastructure within the planning department. The first step for us was to kind of take a pulse inside and see how we're doing with some of the work that has been done already, the MPDU, the Veers Mill plan, some of the work in the Vision Zero, around Vision Zero, checking to see that we have been having a finger on the pulse. We've also done a lot of the trainings that you guys have also participated in, racial equity training, and learned that we have a huge impact on the groundwater. And so this is an opportunity. We see this as an opportunity. And not just for us to do better for the sake of doing better, but do better because it is an asset to the county. There is tremendous cost associated with a lack of awareness. So as Gwen has stated before, we're trying to elevate our awareness and make sure that we're not rushed in making decisions the same way that you guys are trying to be diligent in making conscious and mindful decisions. We are doing the same. We've set up a few focus groups to kind of get a feel for inside, but we've also interviewed some of the regional service directors for the general plan and gathered their feedback because they have a finger on the pulse all the time. We found them to be very helpful. We have built relationships. It's actually Casey's brilliant idea to start these road trips. We've been taking these road trips for a minute, and our first one was to Pittsburgh, and most recently we went to Baltimore. And we've built relationships not only with the park, stronger relationships with the Parks Department, because we work on projects together, but it's very rare that we have the opportunity to kind of have casual conversations with one another. So this is an opportunity for us to find intersectionality in the work that we're doing. And so the relationships are not only happening inside our office, but they're also happening with other jurisdictions, including Baltimore, which is one of our oldest and most prized possessions in the state of Maryland. So Charm City has been, it was a great road trip. It's an all-day affair. We keep the costs very low, and it's a good old-fashioned road trip. And if you've taken those, you know that it can be a lot of fun, but it can also be a learning lesson at the same time. So moving forward, we are keeping in stride with you. With some of the decisions that you've already made so far, we're very much aware of those decisions. And again, we're having conversations not only internally, but we're having conversations with the community as it relates to the general plan and whatever we're going to be putting forth with our equity initiative in planning.
Perfect.
Tanya Stern is going to speak next.
So as part of our focus on equity, our efforts are not just in terms of focusing on what we're doing within our department and what the county is looking at, but equity within a planning profession is actually a major topic nationally. And so I'm just going to give you a few highlights about what has been happening within a profession in terms of those national conversations. Our profession has a professional organization, the American Planning Association, and there are actually a number of initiatives that APA has been undertaking over the last number of years. But one thing I wanted to highlight is the APA Statement of Ethical Principles in Planning. This was originally adopted in 1992, and this document is intended to be guidance for every participant in the planning practice, including professional planners. And I wanted to highlight a couple of some of the language in this statement because it really harkens to the fact that APA was already thinking about equity back in the 90s before we started to use that specific term. One is that the planning process must continuously pursue and faithfully serve the public interest, and then also strive to expand choice and opportunity for all persons, recognizing a special responsibility to plan for the needs of disadvantaged groups and persons. And more recently, actually just this spring, APA adopted the Planning for Equity Policy Guide. This was actually a really tremendous effort that was a result of a member-led task force across the country to create guidance that would serve planners who are doing planning work within urban, suburban, and rural communities. One of the things that this policy guide notes is that this issue of equity is not particular to one particular type of community, that all communities are dealing with equity issues in some form or fashion. And within the equity policy guide, there's another really good quote that really, again, focuses focuses our attention on what it is that we're trying to accomplish, which is, again, to serve the public interest. All planners must ensure that proposed policies and regulations will serve and benefit all residents of a community in ways that reduce or eliminate inequity. Just to give you a few highlights from this policy guide, it takes or it advocates for an equity in all policies approach, and really the intent of that is to apply a holistic equity lens to planning practices. So it isn't just about what we're doing in terms of a master plan, it's about the regulatory process, it's about regulations that are coming out of local jurisdictions, and looking at it much more broadly and not just specifically on what we would consider to be land use specific issues. And the intent, again, is to address not only existing inequities, but to prevent new inequities from being created through the planning work that we're doing today. The policy guide provides policy guidance on both cross-cutting equity issues such as gentrification, environmental justice, and community engagement and empowerment, but it also has policy guidance related to several different topic areas that we will be looking at as part of our general plan, but as you can see, it actually impacts the work of multiple agencies within Montgomery County particularly. And these include climate change and resilience, education, health equity, housing, mobility, and transportation. And so also, in addition to this policy guidance that APA has been creating for planners across the country, there has also been a big effort to integrate equity as part of our professional development through APA programs. More specifically, the National Planning Conference, which took place this past spring. This is APA's annual conference. It drew over 6,000 planners from across the country. There is now, I believe for the last 2 years or so, a separate conference track. It's the Planning for Inclusiveness and Social Justice. And so there were around 30 sessions that were tied specifically to that track. But I took a look back at the program for the conference, and several of us from the planning department were at the conference. And I just did a search on equity, just looking at the program, and there were 70 sessions that related to topics that had an intersection with equity across multiple conference tracks. And I can tell you from a few years ago when I went to, I believe, the APA conference in Atlanta, which was maybe about 5 years or so ago. That was, I think, I don't go to a conference every year, but that year I think they had just a handful of sessions, and the rooms were so crowded that it was probably violating the fire code because there was such a big interest in it. And as you can see within the APA conferences, there are even more sessions because there is a really big interest in planners from across the country and learning more about this issue, learning from other planners who have been looking at how to apply the equity lens specifically in their work so that we can continue our professional development. Wanted to highlight a couple of other things. APA Learn is a new online training platform that APA makes available for its members so that you can continue to take webinars or other trainings outside of conferences. And again, I just did a search for equity, and maybe kind of hard to see, but all those little sort of images are different courses that people can take on, again, topics related to equity and planning. There's also Planning Advisory Service, which is a kind of an additional service that APA makes available for planners across the country. There was a memo that was produced, I believe, in the last year or so that also talked about the needs and recommendations to ensure that the planning profession itself becomes more diverse to better reflect the diverse communities that we are serving. And so, you know, again, APA is our national resource. It's a way for us to track what's sort of the big topics within planning. But again, this has been a really big resource to help us also understand how do we not only, you know, talk equity with our community members, but how can it show up in our actual work that we produce? So with that, I will turn it back to Gwen.
And that's a perfect segue because, again, you've heard a little bit about sort of the history of Montgomery County in regard to some equity issues. You've heard about what's going on a national level. You've heard a little bit about what we're doing as an organization to raise our consciousness, and actually we'll talk more about training, and Robin will be presenting some information on our training activities. But, you know, when it comes right down to it, we can't just talk the talk, we have to walk the walk. We have to actually implement equity as part of our work. And I think that's one of the reasons we felt it was so important to have equity as one of the 3 pillars for the general plan update, Thrive Montgomery 2020. As a county where the majority of our population are people of color, we cannot thrive as a county unless we recognize the issues of equity. And those intersect with economic health, they intersect with environmental resilience. All 3 of these outcomes that we hope for are really interconnected and very, very important. As part of our kickoff of the general plan, we made a specific effort to go to different parts of the county. You know, I think there's a lot of thought that, gee, we have a lot of people of color in the down county. Well, the reality is there are a lot of people of color up county. So we made a specific effort to do events in Shady Grove, in Germantown, and we're going to be doing an event coming up in Burtonsville as well, because we are trying to go to all the different geographies in the county so that we can connect with people of all backgrounds in all of our urban, suburban, and rural communities. Thrive Week was an example of that. We got some incredible feedback and ideas. We're now in the process of using those ideas to move forward in our general plan effort and to begin to talk about and educate on some specific topics, some of the ones actually that Tanya mentioned. And then by the end of the year, we're going to start working on developing some policies. And we hope to come back to you all. Again, our commitment is to not go off and just do the general plan and then present it to you as a fait accompli, but to have your participation on each step of the way. And we do appreciate the council members who participated in Thrive Week.
Can you go back?
If I can figure out how to.
That is the county council debut of the youngest Jawando. On his dad's shoulder there.
That's right, learning early. In terms of, again, outreach, that's one of our biggest efforts in terms of equity, because honestly, if different communities of color are not engaged in our process, then there's no way to actually achieve equity. We really cannot do a top-down kind of approach on this. And so we have been working very hard to have all of our materials and presentations in both Spanish and English. For our Thrive Montgomery, you'll actually see that we have a link now on the web page for Thrive Montgomery that goes to a web page entirely in Spanish, with also individual one-page handouts in 5 or 6 other major languages that are used by different ethnic groups in Montgomery County. We have worked in all of our recent plans like Veers Mill, but also with the Thrive Montgomery to outreach to churches and other community organizations to try to go to where people are rather than have them have to come to 8787 Georgia Avenue for a meeting. We've been using forms of transit because a lot of people commute on Metro Rail and buses, and we've been using those to have signage that allows people to understand that there's a plan going on, whether it be the Veers Mill plan or the general plan, and how to get connected. We've been distributing information at schools. Again, along with churches, schools are a great way to reach people. And we've been using what we hope are more approachable, fun kinds of tools for gaining output, surveys, but also things like the visual recording artists that you've seen at a number of our different events, which I think, again, make it seem a little less intimidating to provide some thoughts and ideas. We've talked a bit about some of our current equity projects that have a major equity component, certainly Vision Zero, and we've completed with the council's direction the Veers Mill plan, and we're working on the Aspen Hill Vision Zero study. We've also done some Vision Zero walks in other communities. We have been working on plans that will promote multiple modes of safe travel. The bicycle master plan, which is complete, the pedestrian master plan, which we're just kicking off. We're looking at many other forms of transit and working with our colleagues at the Department of Transportation on the BRT lines and other kinds of bus options. We're looking at affordable housing in many, many different ways. It started in many ways with our rental housing study that has moved to the update of the new MPDU laws, working closely with the council on the APDU reform, and we are just kicking off a new preservation of affordable housing study that literally just started last week. We are going to be working closely with the University of Maryland National Center for Smart Growth on a study about preserving community value of ethnically diverse retail centers, and we have been very, very linked with the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, who has an interest in many of these same topics. And through the historic preservation section, we've been doing a lot of work of late to recognize and celebrate the history of African American communities, and through our burial sites program, we've expanded the work to not be just buildings and communities, but also burial sites. This is going to be Robin's time to explain a little bit about what we've been doing internally as well as those external efforts.
Good morning. My name is Robin Brittingham. I'm the Human Resource Manager for the Planning Department. In addition to an intentional focus on more equitable planning, we are actively engaging in a wide variety of training activities for staff at all levels. And one of the tools that we use for training is presentations, professional speakers focused on racial equity, social justice, and diversity and inclusion. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention our annual Heritage Month activities. Those are key components to educating our staff about different cultures, and it's a non-threatening way to get people engaged in that conversation, to start wanting to have that conversation. So every year we do Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, Asian Pacific Islander Month, just to name a few of those heritage celebrations to get people in the door and to kind of crack open their minds a little bit to start thinking about how other people are different than them or similar to them. One of my favorite lunch and learns that we've had is a presenter. He also did a training for us, was Michael Ford, who is known as the hip hop architect, and he is out of Madison, Wisconsin. He teaches at Madison College, and he teaches design justice. And he came to us and taught us how to do engagement from a community perspective. And it was very engaging. We learned a lot, learned more hip hop than I wanted to. It was very engaging. A few of us were able to attend a Brown Bag Lunch series that featured Dr. Janetta Cole, who is now the president of the National Council of Negro Women, and she talked about the history of diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion through her journey. And it sparked a challenge in us to do a Brown Bag Lunch series at our agency. And so we've completed 3. Mary Wells Hardy, who was a former commissioner and also a former director of Prince George's Parks and Recreation, was our kickoff person. And she, spoke to a very challenging rise through the ranks at the Parks and Rec. But it also gave staff an opportunity to talk to someone that has had that experience, who has had to go through inequalities, racial inequalities amongst others, to see how they managed and to be able to be at the floor level of what was going on at that time. We also had, most recently, we've had Dan Reed, Michael Bader, and Robert Albro. Dan Reed, a blogger just up the pike, spoke to staff about the history of Montgomery County. He also encouraged the planners to stay vocal about where the county is going and to keep on the right track. Michael Bader and Robert Albro from American University shared their research on how D.C. area residents perceive and experience racial diversity in their lives. We also had, during the Brown Bag Lunch, we also had Diane Vu, Director of Community Partnerships in Montgomery Community Engagement Cluster. And she has opened her arms to allow us to work with her with other outreach opportunities. We're also engaged in the Leadership Montgomery's racial equity workshops. Several of our staff members, I think 4 of us on this panel, have been to that workshop that is presented by the Racial Equity Institute. We are hosting them in October. We will be doing 3 sessions between October and May. So all staff can have an opportunity to go through that Racial Equity Institute. They teach from a groundwater perspective that you learn to address racial equity at the system level and not just at the top level where the things are bubbling and you see pockets of unhappy people, but what is causing that unhappiness. So they teach from they will be teaching staff racial equity, how racial inequity looks the same across systems, how social economic difference does not fix racial inequities, and how inequities are caused by systems. So I'm really looking for, I've already participated, but I'm going to sit in again because that was really, it really gets you geared up when you take that class. We've also had the road trip that Molly spoke about. Do you want to say more about the road trip?
Oh, no.
Okay. We've also in part of our training, we have, I feel it's important that the staff gets some education around language and some baseline training so that we're all on the same page. You know, we can create this functional training and policy and structure, how we look at racial equity through development through the lens of racial equity, but if we're not engaging the staff on what does that terminology really mean, then we're not giving them the proper tools to work. So we've created some partnerships, and we've had some training on disrupting everyday bias, addressing microbehaviors, unconscious bias, power and empathy. And our leadership recently went through a training on the role of leadership in developing a culture of inclusion. And that training actually gave them an opportunity to look at privilege, and not just one type of privileges, all types of privileges, to help us work and manage how we manage differently. And then the last thing I will talk about is our participation in GARE, which is the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. GARE is the national network of government working to achieve racial equity and advance opportunities for all. They provide tools such as national and regional webinars, issue papers that discuss approaches that work, and they document the stories that they embrace and how they move forward with helping government agencies to change their policies and to change their systems.
Can I just say one other thing about GARE is through that we've reached out to Tiffany Ward, and we've become really members alongside with the county executive's office, so we can sit in on the monthly meetings and hear about the innovation that's happening across the country, because it's not just a Montgomery County issue, it's a national,
These are
worldly
monthly
issue.
meetings that GARE itself is doing
Yes.
sort of in a national
Yes,
sense.
they're having webinars kind of discussing progress that's been being made across the globe.
Super.
Great, and so the next thing we're going to talk about is parks, so maybe if we can make room for Mike and Jay. I do want to say that we asked Parks to join us because park planning is a very important part of planning for racial equity. And we work very, very closely with Parks, and we've also been very fortunate to share many of the training activities that you just heard about from Robin. We've had Mike and Jay and many other Parks staff also participate in those training sessions so that we're all working together to create a culture of inclusion. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Mike Riley, Director of the Parks Department. It's great to be with all of you this morning. I want to thank Gwen for inviting us to participate in this really important discussion, and I'm going to cover a few slides that just talk in general about the relationship of parks and recreation with social and racial equity, and then Jay Cole, who oversees all of our park planning efforts, is going to get a little bit more specific about the tool we've developed to use to do equity mapping in the county. So, parks and recreation really have been one of the foundations of equitable public investment ever since the origination of parks and recreation. There's a lot of places you can go to in Montgomery Parks if you want to see a microcosm of Montgomery County's demographics, but two of my favorites I'll just talk about for a minute are Wheaton Regional Park at the group picnic area, carousel, miniature train, adventure playground. If you go there on a pretty Saturday or Sunday, the place is at capacity, and you just see this microcosm of Montgomery County's community, and people are drawn in for common interests to be outdoors, to have their children participating in healthy, fun activities, to picnic, to have extended family come, to have birthday parties. It's just a wonderful experience. And the other I want to cite was Black Hill Regional Park. my wife and I were talking about the parks, and I realized I talked to her a lot about parks she's never seen. So one Sunday I decided to take her to Black Hill. I took her to brunch at Tacoma Inn as a primer, and then we drove to Black Hill and drove around the loop. And when we got to the area where you rent the boats, if you're familiar with it, there's a sloping hillside, a big sloping hillside overlooking the lake where you rent the boats. My wife said, "Oh my God, look at all those people." And there were hundreds and hundreds of people who had just come in to sit on the hillside and picnic with families, all free, and lake view, with the common interest there of all these people is a lake view, picnicking, and again, it seemed to be a microcosm of Montgomery County's demographic, and it's free. If you're familiar with driving into Black Hill, there's an entry booth that's never staffed, because there was a point, I think, in a down economy that the way we were going to support the parks is to charge entry fees. And I'm so glad we did not go in that direction at any of our regional parks. So some of the clear, obvious benefits of parks and its relation to equity are on the slide. I won't read them to you. I did just generally want to make the point that we believe that as far as there's a low-hanging fruit and a big bang for the buck in investment in community parks in Montgomery County because of the role they serve in bringing people together and building community. Moving away from the big parks like Wheaton and Black Hill, as you know, we have 300 playgrounds in the parks. When you go to those playgrounds, what's your common interest? You want to do something healthy with your children, and you get to meet your fellow community members. Same thing with community gardens, dog parks. There's so many amenities that just bring people together that we think investment in parks can really be a quick hitter for improving equity in certain communities. So second slide, please, Jay. So there's a couple national conferences I go to and encourage a lot of my senior management team members to go to. One is the National Park and Recreation Conference. It's in Baltimore next week, so we'll be there networking with the leaders of park districts around the country. But over the last decade, the most important one for us it's called Greater and Greener, and it's sponsored by an organization called the City Parks Alliance. And this conference moves around the country to different major cities. It's been most recently in Denver, prior to that Minneapolis, and prior to that San Francisco. And the reason I really prioritize that is even though we're not a city, obviously, a lot of our issues and interests in Montgomery County are becoming more like what the major cities across the country have dealt with. So there's great value in going and network with the leaders of these agencies. And as Gwen said, in the planning industry, there's a lot of focus on racial equity. There also is in the park and recreation business. And these the logos of these groups here are major park and rec districts that do have equity plans that we're researching and learning from as we develop our own. And I'll just talk specifically about, in general, about what some of these districts are doing. New York City Parks has what they call a framework for an equitable future, where they determine what parks have had less than $250,000 investment in the past 20 years, which they consider a child's lifespan. And they did a bond to reinvest $318 million to recreate 67 community parks. In essence, what they found is when they went back and they saw what parks had minimal investment, those parks would have fallen in what we will show on our mapping are areas of high concentrations of poverty and or people of color. So that's one of the ways New York handle it. San Francisco.
Are you doing an equity plan? Is the Parks Department doing an equity plan? Is that?
Yes.
Great.
Jay is going to talk about it.
Oh, Jay's going to talk about it.
It's got 3 slides after me to talk about what we're doing. San Francisco created an equity matrix which identifies and prioritizes highly diverse or vulnerable communities, and they created a free soccer club to try to counter the rising trend in America only that soccer is a sport for wealthy white children. It's also added the benefit of providing children in vulnerable communities a safe, free space for school on weekends. And then just one more, Los Angeles has a 50 Parks initiative where they conducted a citywide needs assessment and determined that their parks were not equally distributed. And what was needed most to bridge the gap was walking and biking trails, small neighborhood parks, and fitness facilities. So we're learning from all these different jurisdictions as we map out what we need to do, and we're trying to take the best from each experience. A couple things here. I talked about the big regional park, but what we're really focused in our CIP is not a lot of great big new projects. We're focused on equitable distribution across the county in both our park refresher program. That's where we go in to an older park and we simply renew it. And then our level of efforts like playground renovation and PLR, where we can go in if a park is generally functioning well, but it's missing an amenity that would be better for the community or is in higher demand, we can simply switch out an old amenity for a new amenity. So that's when we come to you in February for our CIP, you'll be hearing a lot from us about park refreshers and these level of effort projects. We're also, one thing I'm very excited about, if you remember, we did a different plan called the Energized Public Spaces Functional Master Plan, where we're mapping out every area of high population in the county for level of service. We calculate based on both the residential and the workforce population. We compare that to the supply of parks, and then we can map out high levels of service and low levels of service. We did that for Silver Spring as a pilot area when we had you approve the plan. Now we're taking it to the rest of the county's area, high population areas, and that's going to be a future presentation when we come back. And of course, you can take racial equity and overlay that map on the top of the EPS map and really begin to target priority areas for investment. Just one example, I will talk about how we used our equity map in the current CIP we're developing with the planning board. Long Branch, you're going to see when Jay shows you the map, Long Branch is an area that shows up in the darker color, which is an area of high need for investment. And in our level of effort programs, we prioritize certain activities in Long Branch that include athletic field renovations, connections between communities, playground renovations, Vision Zero improvements, more non-native invasive plant removal, and things like that. So it's an array of different things, but we use the mapping to say, okay, we're gonna take projects in Long Branch that are sitting in this 6-year queue and give them a little bit more priority. So with that, I will turn it over to Jay to talk to you more specifically about our GIS and mapping efforts.
Hello, Jay Cole, Chief of the Park Planning and Stewardship Division. So when we, like Molly said, we are extremely interested in this topic, and when we were planning for our CIP, we wanted to make sure, even though we don't have a formal sort of directive or mapping to be able to look at our CIP using an equity lens, we created an equity map. This is very cursory. We're working with the research division and planning, who are the experts in this, who will get a little bit more fine-grained with the general plan in general. But right now, what we wanted to do is we wanted to have something that we could use to analyze our CIP. So this is what we created. It's an equity GIS analysis tool, and it combines percent area median household income with predominant race and ethnicity. This is done on the census tract level. In the future, we might want to get a little bit more fine-grained, but for the time that we had in order to create it, this is what we ended up with. Since we started, we could have honed down or keyed into specific areas, but once you begin it, you create a tool, you have to use that same tool throughout your analysis.
Okay, so this tool combines AMI and race and ethnicity, and so it's like a combined score. If you have a high AMI but a high diversity score, how does that interact?
Yes, it weights it. Correct, it weights it. So the darker the color, you're going to have a higher racial or black and brown communities and a lower income.
So it's a combined score, though, overall?
Correct.
I guess that's the simplest thing.
Yes, it's the simplest thing. It's a combined score. Some of the things that we would be looking at adding in the future, some other vulnerable statistics could be asthma, low child birth weight, speaks English less than well, education level, poverty, homelessness, unemployment rates, crime data, which is an important statistic, free and reduced lunch, and or distance from parks. So we are going to improve on this mapping. This is just a cursory look at it, so we had some tool with which to analyze our CIP.
Jay, before you,
Yes.
thank you for being here. Before you go, so just to be 100% clear, what level of AMI, the darker red, the lower the income, and the higher level of, like, what are the breaking points of?
I cannot specifically answer
Okay,
that.
I'd be curious to, let me say this, I'd be
I
curious.
can get that information from you. I could talk to the GIS specialist. I don't want to get it completely wrong.
Sounds like it'd be sort of like an inverse relationship, like the lower the AMI, the higher the score, the higher the diversity, the higher the score. Combine them both together, total score. That's my guess.
Yes.
Based on what you've said.
Yes, correct. We want to hone in on those areas where you might have an area with a high Black and brown population and also a high income. So those two things I wouldn't prioritize that over someplace with a high Black and brown population and a low income. So we're trying to sort of target these areas to determine where best to focus our efforts.
Okay. Andrew?
Just a quick question on that. Are existing facilities also part of, I mean, in terms of figuring out where the CIP projects are, the one aspect of it also is what exists today. What's the quantity, what's the quality, and what number of, because not every park is equal in terms of what type of recreational opportunities it provides. Is that part of?
Yes, you just stole an exact line from this presentation.
You've been reading ahead again?
Yes, it's fine, it's fine. We did not meet on this.
Sounds good. Well, then go ahead and.
So, some of the other factors that.
Friedson, that's a brilliant idea. I think that's the right answer.
There you go. Have everyone well trained there. Brilliant.
So some of the things that this does not consider, you can't just take a park and put it on a map and say, do we prioritize it or not? So these are some of the factors that we also consider that requires analysis. So the first are equity amenities. So there are amenities that are sort of geared more towards certain races and cultures. And so I consider those equity amenities: cricket, Tai Chi, futsal. So we wouldn't necessarily weigh if you have a high Latino population in an area that happens to have a high income, we would not put a futsal. That's what they want to play. That's the activity that they want to be doing. Soccer, same thing. Tai Chi, we have a Tai Chi court in Kevin John. The other thing is programming. So studies have shown that one of the barriers to different races and cultures utilizing parks is the access and the ability to program and have things that they actually want to do in them. You can't go into one park and put a bocce ball facility and check it off, said I serve that community. Public transportation is a very important aspect. We have nature centers all over the county. One of them is in Bethesda. And you would think that the Bethesda Nature Center is the least equitable. It's the most equitable facility. It has a bus stop and easy access to public transportation right at its front door. None of our other nature centers have that. So it's the easiest accessible facility. Park condition. We can't just use a map and determine how close a park is and check it off that we're serving that community. Often, especially in this county, a lot of our most diverse areas of the county are our oldest. It's got our oldest infrastructure. And so if we continue to go towards places that don't have parks and don't fix the parks that are in some of these other neighborhoods, we're doing a disservice to those communities. And then there's the countywide versus community use. We have two different types of parks. The countywide parks are regional, recreational parks, conservation parks, special parks, which are our historic preservation parks. Those are created for the entire county. The problem often happens, they also serve as local parks. So Wheaton Regional Park is a regional park, but it also is a local park for the community. So we have to be able to balance those two things with those large parks. An equity issue with countywide parks is how do we get people from certain communities to be able to experience that? How do we get people from Long Branch up to Black Hill? How do we get, yes?
Oh, whenever you're thinking.
Okay. How do we get people from Wheaton to go up to Little Bennett? Oftentimes, that's where the equity factors in. With community use parks are our local and neighborhood parks, and are really where I believe the rubber hits the road when it comes to racial equity. That's where you are creating these parks for the community that surrounds it. I cannot help that Josiah Henson was enslaved in Bethesda. That's where the building is, and that's where the museum is going to go. We would not put the Josiah Henson Museum on top of the racial equity map and determine whether or not we were going to invest in it. That's where it is. Little Bennett is sort of where it is. With community and county, with community use parks, however, we really need to focus on that community and making sure that those parks are great, safe, and really reflect the needs of that community.
Nancy.
Thank you so much. So if I'm understanding correctly, so you've developed this tool, so the map is sort of like the first kind of layer, right? So that you can take a peek at where are communities who are affected both by issues of poverty, if you will, as well as the communities of color, which just by looking at it, right, is you can superimpose that into the very old NCPS map of where the focused and non-focused areas are, because it hasn't really changed that much. So I assumed, and then the next step, as I'm hearing you present, is that then you're going to take a look at the conditions of the particular amenities that exist. I really like the way you describe the regional versus the community, because it is very true that communities are not necessarily going to say, well, we're only going to go to our local park. If we know that there is this awesome nature center in Bethesda and it has great access to public transportation, then we'll go take our kids there. And I think that's a great way to think about this going forward, is this notion that we do need to look at transportation. We do need to take into consideration all those other factors, because our communities see the county assets as sort of ours. It's not like I only go to this one or the other, which is why Wheaton Regional Park, as far as my daughter is now 27, when she was a baby and we started going there, exact same thing, right? Because it is accessible to a certain degree. It has so many amenities, and everybody just feels real comfortable. So I really love the way you're going about this, because it's a different way of thinking about CIP and investments, and and where should we start? We have so many assets. How do we position them, I guess, so that as many people as possible can have access to them? Really is that key, and the way you're going about it, I'm very excited about how methodical and how strategic you're doing that. It's really great.
Thank you. And I just wanted to highlight with the condition, and I haven't gotten to your point yet, but Long Branch is our point, yes, that's right, yes, we're a great team. Long Branch is a great example. Long Branch is park rich. If you look at it from a map, you'll see a lot of green. It's amenity quality poor. So you can't just look at the map and say they are fully served, let's go someplace that doesn't have anything. We have to get in there and fix the conditions and make sure it's a safe place. One of the things that, as Mike had mentioned, at Greater and Greener, that I found the most interesting is the quality of a space and the quality of a park is measured by how many women hang out there. So if you go into a park and you see no women, there's something off. It's either it's safety, it's something that causes, because women will go and congregate where they're safe, where the amenities are, where they're bringing their children, their vulnerable populations. Okay, so the other thing that I took from Greater Greener, which I think is completely true, is that parks are hyperlocal. It is everything to a community that's right there. This is a picture of the Hillendale Local Park Facility Plan that is a standalone in our CIP this year, and that's the arrow where it falls on our equity tool. When you zoom in, and I apologize for the fuzziness, this is Hillendale Local Park. It is the only park in its census tract this census tract north of that. This is Paint Branch Stream Valley unit. It's the only park with amenities within 4 census tracts around it. You see the dark red, and this is Northwest Branch. So all of the green that you see that's not this blob are all conservation parks. There are no playgrounds there. There's no, ooh, sorry. So, what's that?
Maybe it's for me.
I can get it. So this is an example of all parks aren't created equal. This, I'm a scientist by nature, well, by education. And so this park, yes, sorry.
Just on this point Jay's making, in the Energized Public Spaces master plan, on the supply side, we broke supply of parks into 3 categories. It was contemplative, which is nature, active, athletic fields, playgrounds, and then social gathering, places that would provide for the community to come together. And so that's why Jay is, in this case, kind of dismissing those Northwest and Paint Branch. Is you do have natural surface trail systems, which are active. I don't want to get in trouble with my boss over here, but in general, they are not developed with the type of amenities like you do in an active park.
And as a stream ecologist by education, I'm dismayed from the fact that I was just told I was dismissing a Stream Valley Park system, which is what happens when you change jobs. This park has a higher carrying capacity than other parks. It has to serve more residents. This is different than a park, the same local park that you might be able to throw a ball and hit 4 local parks and you have a choice. These residents don't have a choice. So we want to make sure that this park has as many amenities as possible. It's a very diverse community. We want to make sure we have amenities for the entire community because this is their only available option opposed to going to a regional park. We want to make sure the quality of those amenities are high. Higher use equals higher, everybody knows the difference between quality versus costs. We want to make sure that that playground isn't going to fall apart in 5 years, that it makes it the 20-year, 20, 30-year lifespan that's necessary. And so did I hit all of our points?
Yeah. One moment.
Thank you. This is great, and it's a great real-life example. I also would say, as you're thinking of additional items to put in the GIS mapping, and maybe you're already doing this, but the density of the community itself, because just up the road, you have White Oak, where you're going to have a ton of multifamily, right? One of the largest apartment complexes in the county there, and I think you're going to have the same kind of compression where, whereas Hillendale's more single family, immediately around there, but just right up the road, where you're going to have a similar problem. So I'm wondering if you speak to, are you including that in? And if not, I would suggest that you do.
We will definitely be including that in. That's included in the EPS plan. It takes population, type of park, and it comes in with the what is needed in that area. So population was my first one. I just didn't read it off. Population, age. Age is another one that I did not read off that we would take into account. Different populations, you would look at them a little differently. We would plan a park differently close to Leisure World as we would to someplace else. So, close to Leisure World we might be, or Hillendale, which has a facility close to it, we would talk about doing some sort of a multi-generational facility, an area where people feel that they can, it's a far and beyond ADA, where we're really making a place that people feel comfortable going to. So yes, thank you for that.
One other quick thing for your score as you develop it over time, it may be worth layering in there HOA provided amenities.
We use HOA amenities for our EPS. Our Energizing Public Spaces plan does not factor in at all just parkland. We look at all publicly accessible spaces unless it's gated or fenced. And so because we use schools, we weight them for all of our analysis. For instance, when we look at tennis courts, when we count how many tennis courts are around, we include HOAs that aren't locked. We include school. I believe we include HOAs. I will check on that. We include schools, but we weight it because a school tennis court is not available all day long. So I believe it's something like 0.4. So one tennis court is 0.4 tennis courts for the public because the rest of the day it's closed because of the school. So we don't, although we want to provide as much activities as possible. If you looked at a park equity map, you would see that maybe Leisure World has a lot of gaps, but they have a lot of parks. So if you factor in the Leisure World parks that are available to everybody, they're being served.
Or HOAs. I mean, I was just particularly thinking of like modern development. A lot of these HOA communities have playgrounds. They may not have recreational fields, but they have some of the smaller amenities, pools often.
Right.
And it's just a layer that needs to be visible, that's all.
We will add that on there. We tend to group them all together and call them privately owned public spaces, the POPs, but yes, we will add that.
Let me close with one of Chair Anderson's priorities for both parks and planning is data-driven analysis of our recommendations, and I want to thank, and particularly Gwen, for sharing her GIS resources with us. It's something we're proud of, that we've built a strong analytical function within park and planning with our census data to use GIS to do these types of complex analyses. So this is just the beginning, and we're going to continue to evolve it as we move forward.
So Casey is going to say a few words of conclusion, and then we will take your questions.
Well, obviously, we all have learned a great deal over the last few years about the ways in which race, ethnicity, economics, and our evolution as a society have come together or not come together to help us make progress, to make sure that everybody can share the prosperity and quality of life that we like to think of as being the standard in Montgomery County. I want you to know, and I hope it's coming across from this presentation, that I personally, the planning board, all the people sitting here, and all of our staff are fully committed to this effort, not just to make our land use planning, our transportation planning, and our parks planning cognizant and responsive to the need to do better. Because I think the county, over time, has done better than a lot of places, but we know that it's not good enough. We're fully committed not only to make sure that that is pervasive in applying those ideas and that awareness to everything that we do, but I hope that it's coming across from some of this discussion of GIS and the data collection that we've done, that we're a resource for the entire county government, for the executive branch agencies, for all of your work. I feel strongly that we have the best people, not only in local government, but probably one of the best agencies in the entire country in terms of the sophistication and capacity we have to do this kind of analysis. And I think it's highly relevant to the work that many of the other county government agencies are doing. We consider ourselves your think tank, your resource for all the work that you do. And so I hope you'll think about it that way when we're talking about this set of issues. The only plug that I would make with that is Jay was talking about how we've refined some of these tools, and if we were starting over again, even from some of the things that we initiated a couple of years ago with the Urban Parks Plan, we would probably do it differently because we have a better, not only a more refined appreciation for what some of the challenges are, but also the technology. We have invested in GIS in the Parks Department. Those folks have gone out and mapped every single piñata hook in the county, in any of our parks, which is going to be useful not only to create a map, so if you want to have a kid's birthday party and you want to knock down a piñata, we'd like to help you be able to find a place where you can do that. But it also supports this effort of trying to understand at a much more nuanced level, not just where are there needs for more parks, but where are the needs for those kind of equity amenities that Jay was talking about. So I hope you'll think about that as you proceed with your equity agenda, that supporting our efforts to become more data-driven, to support some of these technological tools and mapping tools that didn't exist or were not practical to apply in local government just a few years ago. That data is getting cheaper, it's getting more usable, but we still have to have the resources to collect it and be able to use it to not only help us, but to help you apply that across the board.
Thank you. Great presentation. Lots to digest and talk about. I will go to my colleagues now. I think Mr. Duando, you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all. I agree, it's a great presentation. Thank you all in the back, and whoever needs to come up to answer, if it touches on you, please do. Just a couple questions. I'm glad you have this focus, glad we're looking at this in this way. I think it's very complementary to the work that is being led by the council president and the council here on racial equity. So it's a good time to be having all these conversations in addition to general plan. I did want to ask about HR. In addition to the training and all the activities that you're doing, could you talk a little bit about what you're doing to recruit and hire qualified candidates of color that we know are going to bring different perspectives? When Melina, I think, was talking about you started talking about I'm from Wheaton, I've seen it develop. I think that's just a perfect example, one of many, of the type of perspective that's needed in the planning process and in all the government work that we do. So if someone could just speak to that.
I'm going to let Robin respond to that. It is something we're very focused on. We're actually currently looking at getting some outside assistance from our Central Administrative Services Office to look at all of our recruiting for planners in both Prince George's and Montgomery County to make sure that we are doing the best possible practices. So again, it's one of these things where we actually are a very reflective agency. We want to not just keep doing what we're doing. We like to actually step back and do some analysis and reflection to make sure we're doing it the best we can. But Robin does a great job. I'm going to let her talk about that.
We are changing some of the tools that we're using to recruit. We've just purchased the Diversity Network website, and they come in and they scrape all of our jobs, and they reach out to all of their partners. They have about 30 different partners in the different, what do you want to call them, affinity groups, and funnel those job announcements out to those various affinity groups where it saves me a lot of time versus posting individually, and we use that as a tool. And the Central Administrative Services Office also has the Diversity Network tool that they use for recruitment as well. And as we're starting to look at our internship program and considering developing a fellowship, we're looking at different schools to recruit from than we normally would right now. So those are the two things that we're doing right at the moment. We are, as Gwen said, we're starting to take a look with Prince George's planning at where are we getting our hires from, where are our applications going to, our job announcements going to, where are we reaching out to the people to get some different applications than we're getting right now, and how can we look at them differently? Is there a way for us to look at them without their names on the applications? Is there a way for us to look at them without finding out what college they went to, so when the managers are getting them, they not making a preconceived judgment about who that person is? Sure. So that's one of the things. It's kind of hard to do that because of the system that we use to where people apply. We use the application tracking system that is automated where people go online and apply. So we haven't been able to figure out how to block that component, those different components out yet, but we're talking with the recruitment office at the moment.
I want to just add also, and I think Robin touched on our internship program. We've gotten some of our best employees started off as interns in our system. And we have interns and term contract employees. And we've been able to, I think, reach out to a lot of different schools. We've had a very strong connection with University of Maryland, but I know we have several HR interns who I think are from Bowie State. We've been able to have some from Morgan State, Towson, other places where we're actually trying to, bring people in just for a summer internship, see how things go. And that's been, I think, a very positive way to try to diversify our staff a bit.
Yeah, in the Parks Department, that can happen in a little bit of a subtle way, similar problem, but it doesn't necessarily operate through internships. In the past, when we've had some seasonal or intermittent jobs in the Parks Department, we tend not to advertise those, or if we do, it's for a very short period, because the thought is we're just bringing in whoever we can get in the door to, stand at the carousel at Wheaton and take tickets, or, mow the lawn when the grass is out of hand, or whatever the situation is. And the problem is that that's a way where you can identify employees who are promising, and then they sort of get into the network. So it's a way in which that may not be biased on its face, but it operates to the benefit of people who are sort of part of the social network, or the people who already work for the agency. So that's kind of one of the things that I think we're going to need to look at for parks, that maybe doesn't have a precise analog in the planning department, but it operates in the same way, to make sure you're giving people opportunities to show that they can do the job and are good prospects to be considered for full-time career employment.
I think,
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay. I just wanted to add, Elaine Jackson for the record, but I just wanted to add that not only with hiring, but we're also kind of looking at some of the advisory groups that we have to make sure that we have a good mix of people as far as the diversity is concerned, that they influence and help to give guidance to staff as they're reviewing development applications and, our work in general. So not just looking at staff, but also who's on the advisory panels, who are recommending things to our planning board, what kind of perspective do they add to the conversation, and are included at the table as well.
that's really important.
The other thing we're looking at, and we're at the very, very beginning stages of this process, is succession planning. In the next 5 years, we have 45 people that can retire, and I am one of them. But that's a big gap, since as an HR person, I'm the only HR person we have. So, I found my replacement. She doesn't know it, but we have to look at how we groom people, and we're not looking at necessarily at people, but positions. And what do we need in 2050? What kind of planner do we need? Do they need to be more technical? Do they need, what kind of skill sets do they need? So we're starting at the very beginning of looking at one, knowledge transfer, getting that institutional knowledge put on paper. Though it's going to change from between now and 5 years from now, we need a starting point, because if somebody walks out the door, I want to be able to hand them something to say, hey, this is the work that you need to be doing, and then also some employee development plans, so we can see what skill sets do we have in-house and what skill sets do we need to develop within our staff, and then start working with the succession plan. And you have to look at it from an equity point of view. You can't just, we're going to pick this person and move them up the ranks, so we have to kind of have a broad picture of what that looks like.
Also, just wanted to add, the other piece to having a diverse staff is not just hiring staff, but also how do you continue to support staff once they are hired. And so our department already has a well-established mentoring program that staff from throughout the department, different backgrounds, can take advantage of. And I can say for myself, I am mentoring a term contract employee who's a person of color. I've also done some informal mentoring of an employee who actually works for Prince George's Planning, who reached out to me and is a young planner of color as well. So that's the other piece, is the actually bringing people in, supporting staff so that they can grow their skills as planners, so that they can develop their careers, and then also the succession planning as well. To me, those all really should work hand in hand.
That's great. I appreciate the robust answer. And to your point, you said something that I was going to say, and I'll emphasize. We go to these racial equity trainings, which it sounds like everyone up here has taken, and you talk about the resume example of implicit bias, where you get names and you mention this, but then you walk out and then we're doing the same thing, and we haven't changed actually what we're doing. And what I mean is, for the people watching at home, you get a resume, and we know from studies that there is bias based on the name on the top of the resume, or the schools, and so even if it's unconscious. And so how do we build into our systems? It sounds like you're looking into that. It's a technology issue, but how do we try to break down those barriers? And we need to do this countywide, but so that we are giving every candidate the best shot, in addition to all the recruitment. So I think that's a very tangible way of, like, how you take you hear equity, how do we, and you go to that training and you come out and you feel overwhelmed. How do we make it real, something real that you can change, that's going to impact the way we do practice?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that is the next step for us. I don't know about other departments or how you feel about how you want to carry that forward, but coming out of that training, I had exactly the same reaction. Okay, that's a good insight that there is unconscious bias, but that's not really enough to be able to necessarily overcome it or figure out how to apply that idea day to day. And I'm hoping that will be our next step, is to really get some training for our managers on really making sure that we're always aware of that and specific steps we can take to recognize and overcome that in the day-to-day nitty-gritty decisions, not just let's have a training once and then forget about it.
Yeah, and I think that's why when we have legislation, that'll help a lot. That'll enforce us every time. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is related, you have to measure what you're doing. And I would say in the HR place, and this is a question broadly to everybody, but you could talk about it in HR. I encourage and would like to know how you're measuring progress towards, for example, hiring more people of color, and then broadly, how are you going to measure success of this work? And what are the metrics you're using to look at, as you're doing the various components of this great plan? Have you thought about that at all, and how are you looking at that?
Yeah, about a year ago, I asked our Central Administrative Services, the bi-county HR folks, to start looking at what we could, not only at each of the Montgomery County departments, but try to benchmark how are we doing internally, not just in terms of diversity in various positions, but also measuring things like turnover. Mm-hmm. So we could start to really understand how are we doing compared to other similar agencies, how can we improve on that, and to get a benchmark baseline so we can understand, are we moving forward or not over time.
Great.
So I think we're going to get the results of some of that over the next several months.
One of the documents that we received for measuring, at least from an HR perspective, is the personnel management review that we get from Central Administrative Services, and it breaks down the different ethnic backgrounds. It breaks down what group is in what profession or what group is in administrative services, and it gives us the breakout of what we have and who's eligible for retirement, who is working in what group is predominantly in park maintenance worker, and we get that on an annual basis. So from a recruitment perspective, we can look and see where we're moving the needle. From a succession planning process, the employee development plan gives us a progress report that we're getting ready, the tool that we're going to use gives us a progress report and seeing where people are advancing to, so it allows us to measure that as well. The internship and the mentoring programs that we have, that's kind of word of mouth right now, so I don't have a way to measure that, except when we hire them. When we hire someone that's been an intern for us, that's a win. We are looking at our vacancy report to help us analyze how long it's taken us to hire, the type of person that we're hiring, the background that they're coming from. So we have a couple of different ways to measure it, but there's some of the stuff that we're just starting, like the knowledge transfer data document. We just started looking at the template, the layout of what do we want to know from each person. So that has not kicked off yet, and that's part of the succession plan.
Can I just mention, sorry, just real quick, that the beauty of our agency is that we are a bi-county agency, which is uncommon. It's not the norm. So
Chuckling now because the county executive proposed last week that we abolish the bi-county agency and replace it with a county function that I suspect he would also like to put in his executive branch.
it's exactly why I'm speaking up, is because the beauty of our agency is we have a pool of really great and talented staff in-house, but we have the beauty of being able to go across the border into Prince George's County. You heard me say I'm from Wheaton. I graduated from Albert Einstein, but I actually live in Prince George's County. So that speaks to millennials and other people like me that grew up in the county but cannot afford to stay in the county. So the beauty is that we can go across the border, and we do have access to other jurisdictions beyond just Virginia. We actually have a joint sister. We have a relationship, a strong relationship.
Yeah. And in fact, as I close, I'm not asking a question. I just want to make a statement. I think it's really important to think about, if we're not ready to say it today, that's okay. After we go through this whole process, after we go through it for the general plan update, what is success? in how we've incorporated diverse communities and the feedback we've gotten back, and what are we going to do going forward? And that can be an ongoing conversation, but I just really want to impart that, particularly on the planning side. What I really appreciate about the parks presentation, not that planning hasn't done this, but is that this map, it's more, you can hold it, okay, these communities, we know Hill and Dale, we've got a, but on this side, it's a little harder because of the scope of planning, to nail those things down. And I would just encourage us to work together to try to really put some meat on the bones of what does success look like, what are we going to measure, that at the end of this process that we really were inclusive and that we brought every voice in, and this is what we're going to do going forward. So I appreciate what you've done so far.
Council President Nancy Navarro.
Thank you very much. You guys have done extraordinary work. Obviously, as you know, tomorrow we're going to introduce the legislation, and it does call for park and planning it requires park and planning to consider racial equity and social justice lens in master plans and things that you do. And obviously, you guys are already ahead of the curve. The idea, obviously, with this legislation, it has a lot to do with what we're just discussing, right? That unless we have something that does require us to do all of this into the future, obviously, we will all eventually retire, and new people will come on. And the most important thing is to make sure that we have continuity, because this is not going to be something that we're going to be able to turn around overnight. This is just a way to give us a structural mechanism to begin to really dismantle all of these practices. And it was interesting when one of you talked about having this, planner who used hip hop. And it was interesting to me because, my daughters are always reminding me how hip hop is the largest musical genre consumed in the world. And sometimes you talk about crossover, and I'm thinking, well, but if it is the largest musical genre consumed in the world, why are we talking about crossover? Really, it is mainstream. But so how we talk about these issues is also so important, because my dream would be that we will get to a place where we're not talking about this as what practices are we using and what techniques are we doing, that this is just mainstream, that everybody understands that we have to do this, not because, it's just such the right thing to do, but because it affects all of us, right? And that way it is always a priority, that we're not twisting ourselves into a pretzel to figure out how can we hire folks? Because then I think about, well, if we're not intentional, not a lot of Black and brown kids have an opportunity for these amazing paid internships, and that right there begins to create these barriers. So there's so many things that we're going to have to pull, layers and work on. And I'm just excited that we'll get to a place now where it's not just about those who are passionate about these issues and live it every day, but that it is a requirement in law for Montgomery County. That to me is what would make a difference, I hope, at some point. And so really, truly inspired by everything that you guys have done already. A couple of just suggestions, so important, this issue of the website, having, the different languages, et cetera. I would just, suggest make sure that those those languages are really kind of big. So, because a lot of these communities are not used to these processes. So if they were to ask somewhere and you say, oh, go to the website, it'd be cool if the, Espanol or the Amharic button, it's like really, but then also make sure that who you're using to translate all of this is somebody that has expertise in the field, because just a quick glance, some of it is really good and some of it doesn't make any sense. And so you don't want to go through that entire effort, but it doesn't mean anything to these communities, because when they read it, even the Thrive Montgomery, the way it's translated into Spanish, that just doesn't click. So that's really important to do, because to me that's part of how we begin to expose and inform so many different communities into this whole entire genre or field of planning. So I would just offer that as something to look into. But the most exciting thing, as I said, is that moving forward, what I hope will end up happening is that each committee will have this task of having these updates and tracking the outcomes, so that we can all see how we're doing. And then when it comes time for things like budget decisions, when it comes time for what do we prioritize, that we have all this in front of us, and this also guides what we do. I will close by saying that, as you saw in the map, and I've said this before, 4 of the 5 councilmanic districts are majority of color. So this issue of how do we address equity, again, it's not just like a nice thing to do or a homework type thing that we're going to do. We have no choice but to do this, because it will affect everything: our education, attainment, our economic development goals, our public safety goals. It just affects everything. And I believe that we can be a model for the country in how to begin to do this and do it well. So really, truly appreciate all of this. I can't wait for us to really start working comprehensively, all the departments, you guys, et cetera, and for us to start tracking some of these cool decisions and outcomes moving forward. You guys are way ahead, and do appreciate the leadership. Mr. Anderson, Ms. Wright, Mr. Riley, all of you who have the expertise. Really love seeing how front and central everybody is and how everybody is participating in all of this. So thanks a lot, and I thank you, Chair of PHED and colleagues, for allowing me to join you today.
Thank you. Yeah, this committee meeting is happening to understand where we are in this broader conversation that you've initiated this year. And so it's really helpful to pause for a moment and just have a full assessment. I think that was really what we wanted to do today, was all get on the same page about what the initiatives are that are underway, so we know going forward where we're starting from. Those of us over here, I think we need to know. You all are obviously working on this, but Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Chair Reamer, for putting this together. I think it's a really important and very timely discussion, and I associate myself with a lot of the comments that have already been made, and I just want to thank you all, thank Park and Planning for not waiting on these issues, but leading on these issues and really getting ahead of this. We know that land use is such an important part of this discussion, and so you are a critical partner in tackling these issues. And in Montgomery County, we have been both the model for good things related to this issue, with things like inclusionary zoning and others, and the bad. And we've been participated in some of the same unfortunate policy decisions and allowing for things to happen, even if they weren't necessarily policies. And so as we talk about that, if we can double down on the things that we have done that have been really shown leadership and really been ahead of their time, and try to modernize those approaches and broaden those approaches and make sure that we're addressing and tackling the unfortunate things that we've been doing, and you clearly are doing that. I really appreciate the fact that we don't necessarily need to be on the bleeding edge of these issues. We need to be on the cutting edge of these issues, and so by looking at other jurisdictions, like the road trips that were mentioned to Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and like I know the Parks Department has been doing with looking at other organizations, similar organizations in similar jurisdictions around the country, and figuring out what best practices are and trying to implement some of those best practices. We don't have to be the first to do everything in Montgomery County. Sometimes it's better to see what others are doing, tweaking them to figure out how they could be a little bit improved and make sure they reflect what our community is and what we strive for it to be, and implementing it here, and you clearly are doing that. So I think it's really helpful, and I think this committee is really going to have an important role in this, just because of the critical aspect that land use has. And so I appreciate this conversation. I think it's incredibly timely, not just with the general plan update, and obviously with the council president's leadership with the bill that she is introducing tomorrow, and that has the full support of all of our colleagues on the council, and that she has really been pioneering from the beginning here. But I think this really is the moment where we can tackle these issues, and these are institutional challenges that are really complex. They require some institutional solutions, and conversations like this one and the content that we're talking about in terms of really getting into how we operationalize that is really going to be critical. Just a point, I totally agree with you, Ms. Jackson, on the bi-county, the benefits of it being bi-county, not to mention that it's not in the county charter, it's state law that creates and establishes the Park and Planning Commission as a bi-county entity. But I'm hoping we can somehow get you to be a sole Montgomery County work and live, but we'll get to that because we need to bring back as much talent. We just recently had a conversation about wanting to make sure that we have all this talent that started in Montgomery County, and I'm glad we've got you working in Montgomery County, but we want everybody to live in Montgomery County too, so we can fully benefit from your talent and leadership and community engagement. And really that's what this is all about. I mean, the affordable housing aspect that you mentioned is part of that calculation, is part of it, but also it's about where the housing affordability is, market rate and otherwise, and what amenities and community facilities are available to those people. And so I'm hoping that is an important part of this discussion. I look forward to being part of it, and I look forward to further conversations at this committee, specifically talking about land use. And I'll just close with one piece that I'm really glad it came up, and the council president mentioned this earlier in her initial comments, the transportation piece, the assets that we already have, the idea that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have some gems in the county that we can really focus on by providing access to them. And so this isn't just a park and planning conversation. It's got to be a holistic conversation. And the comment that was made about Bethesda and how that is one of the most diverse facilities. I was just talking recently about the daycare facility that's in the Regional Service Center building is an extremely diverse child care facility because it has great access to transportation, because it's near employment opportunities. So, we need to talk in that type of way, in a broader way of figuring out how we deal with this in a holistic matter. And sometimes it's building something new, sometimes it's activating something better that already exists, and sometimes it's making sure that there's transportation access to these community gems so that everybody can have the benefit of Wheaton Regional Park and of Brookside Gardens and of some of the other terrific facilities that we have that I don't think we do a good enough job when we silo ourselves into thinking of transportation separate from this conversation. It's got to be an intrinsic part of this conversation. So thank you to everybody for what I think has been a really good and important discussion, and look forward to continuing it as we move forward.
Thank you very much. You made a great point about the benefit that we get from the bi-county agency. I did want to take the moment to say I'm totally opposed to abolishing the commission and replacing it with a different local version. I think that'd be a huge mistake. I think but you've given us another reason why. So thank you for that. Great discussion. I mean, I see an agency that is working to center itself around equity, and that is an ongoing journey, but it is one that is clearly happening, and we really appreciate that. We've got a lot of very challenging issues ahead of us as we're, for example, seeking to plan the future of the Purple Line Corridor, where we really want to see an economic renaissance, but we want to achieve a vision of the community that we really want to have, where it's affordable and accessible to people from many walks of life. Just one small example of the road ahead, but thank you for this discussion, and I think it positions us well as we proceed. We will be taking up the Council President's legislation in due course, as that will be introduced tomorrow, and we'll touch on that additionally at that time. So I think that will conclude this item, and we'll go on to the next item. Yeah. Thank you, Nancy. So we have we're going to catch our breath, and we have two more items. Thank you, Jay. All right. Why don't we get started here, folks? All right.
Yeah, you need a gavel.
I need a gavel.
Hear ye, hear ye.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna try to move quickly through the cybersecurity tax credit. Thank you. Pretty much done.
2-0.
Exactly. So, Christine Wellens, please refresh us on the committee legislation that's before us.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Council Bill 2319, Cybersecurity Investment Incentive Tax Credit Supplement Amendments, is before the committee and is also sponsored by the members of this committee, Council members Reamer, Friedson, and Jawando. It was introduced on July 16th, 2019, and a public hearing was held on September 10th, 2019. The purpose of this bill is to update the county's tax credit supplement under Code Section 2076D in order to align it with the state cybersecurity investment credit under the state law. Currently, the county code provides a supplement to the state's tax credit, or essentially a matching grant, for certain cybersecurity company investments in the county. In 2018, the General Assembly amended the underlying state credit, to provide that it may be claimed by a qualified investor as opposed to a qualified cybersecurity company. And the investor may be an individual or an entity, a company itself. So essentially, this bill is an important housekeeping measure to bring the county code up to date with the state code. And the staff recommendation is that the committee, we suggest that the committee recommends approval of this bill as introduced.
Super. So the idea here is that rather than have the benefit go to the company, it goes to the investor. So the company can pitch an investor and say, if you invest so much money in our company, there will be an additional investment that will come through these tax credits, potentially. I guess it's not a certainty because there's a cap on the amount of funding that's available.
Right.
But so I note in here that there are 150 or so, the finance department estimates, cybersecurity companies in the county, which is terrific. It's a huge potential future for us to be positioned as a leading cybersecurity center. Certainly with all the federal spending in this area, we ought to be able to spin out a lot more out of that than we're doing yet, but we're trying to put in new initiatives in place. The initial legislation that this is modifying was a bill that I introduced several years ago, but I think the consensus in the industry has been that having the benefit go to the investor was a better way to do it and we get more success. So we're following the state's lead here to modify ours to match it because it's a piggyback on the state tax benefit. All right, to my colleagues, I don't know who had the light first. Mr. Friedson.
Yeah, I just want to first of all commend Chair Reamer for initially pushing the county in this direction to try to solidify our leadership locally and regionally in cybersecurity, where we are and should continue to be a global leader. Which is really important, and obviously I think this has the support of the 3 members of the committee, since we are all the co-lead sponsors, and this was based off of a conversation and request we had during the budget process, where we had talked about clarifying this, and now we're following through on the commitment that we made during the budget process. And I think just more broadly, this, while clarifying the, and coming into compliance with the change at the state level, which is necessary to keep the program, the spirit of the program to continue, this is also part of a small part, but of a broader effort that we have continued to talk about at this committee about increasing the risk capital in the county and trying to create a improved environment for innovation and for for risk-taking by investors, and we certainly have a significant amount of wealth in Montgomery County, but we don't really have a significant amount of venture funding and of those willing to take risks on companies. And so ways that we can throw a pebble into a pond and allow the ripples of the private sector to create jobs and create opportunities and create entrepreneurs and to attract entrepreneurs to stay in Montgomery County or to come back to Montgomery County, I think is really helpful. So looking forward to this being part of a broader effort that we'll continue to do, and thank you to Chair Reamer for his leadership on this particular issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Friedson. Mr. Dwan.
Thank you, Mr. Reamer, and also just want to thank my colleagues. I think this is a really smart way and will actually make us the only jurisdiction in the state to piggyback in this way and give us a competitive advantage to draw more cybersecurity companies and investment here. I think you always like to see the economic impact statement say this will be a net positive to the to the economy, and that's what we want to do. And I think all of us, particularly those of us who are new, and I know along with Councilmember Reamer, want to make sure that we're doing things that are going to help our economy in the long term. I just visited the Germantown campus of Montgomery College a couple weeks ago and saw the cybersecurity center there, and they're doing great work, whether it's a 2-week certification or longer term courses to get actual degrees. And we just need to continue to feed that system. As the Councilmember Reamer mentioned, I think this is going to continue to grow. Unfortunately, I always reminded of the map that all the cyber attacks that are happening imminently, and there's a lot coming and more to come. So I think we're already a leader in the field, but we could be even more of a leader. So this will be a way to help encourage folks to come and settle here. So I want to thank my colleagues and look forward to moving this forward to the full council.
There's no amendments proposed or anything like that from council staff. This looks straightforward. Great.
Correct.
All right. I think we're approved without objection. We'll move on to the next item. Thank you. We have a legislation that is the companion legislation to the zoning change that we adopted this summer around accessory dwelling units. And it just tackles a number of targeted points that the council, the committee wanted to ensure were also enacted, but needed to be done separately because they're not zoning code changes. They are changes in the legal code. And I'm not seeing, Christine, are you also handling this today?
Yes, I am. I'm pinch
Great.
hitting for Jeff.
I know Jeff is, he's working on his recovery. He's doing some, he's had some challenging health issues, and we're all pulling for him completely. Great. So, Christina, why don't you take us through the bill? Let's invite up DHCA, Director Nigam, Tim Getzinger, DPS, Hassan Wadizeti, and, oh, terrific. Others, yeah. If you need to be up, come on up.
Self-regulated.
Yeah.
That's the way you like it.
Free market for panelists. Okay.
But we're talking about regulating people.
Okay, Christine, why don't you walk us through the components of the legislation?
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Reamer. As you know, this is a companion bill, Bill 2219, Accessory Dwelling Unit Licensing Requirements Amendments. It's a companion legislation to the Zoning Text Amendment ZTA 1901, which passed unanimously on July 23rd, 2019, and will take effect on December 31st, 2019. As companion legislation, the bill would make the code consistent with ZTA 1901 and also make some additional specifications regarding accessory dwelling units. Specifically, the bill will replace the phrase accessory apartment with accessory dwelling unit, amend the standards for minimum ceiling heights for basements or cellars used for accessory dwellings, amend the accessory dwelling unit license procedures concerning ownership and common ownership associations, require information and notice concerning common ownership communities in the application and in the review of an accessory dwelling unit license, and require reporting by the executive of any problems associated with accessory dwellings and planned solutions to those problems. At the public hearing on September 10th, 2019, there were 4 speakers, including the Director of the Department of Housing and Community Affairs, Asim Nigam. He testified on behalf of the county executive in support of the bill. Just sort of a side note, at the time, DHCA noted that they might be requesting an amendment, sort of a technical amendment to move the reporting requirement to a different chapter, but I've been informed since then, and obviously they can speak to this, that they're no longer requesting an amendment along those lines.
We don't need to discuss amendments that are not going to be requested. It's all right.
All right, great. The CEO for Habitat for Humanity also spoke in support of the bill. And one issue which the committee might wish to discuss is that Habitat suggested that a grace period be provided for so that current owners of illegal apartments can convert and license their accessory units to encourage them to do so. There were 2 speakers in opposition to the bill, Mr. Amateti from the Montgomery County Taxpayers League, as well as resident Ms. Hessie Harris. Mr. Amateti cited a University of Michigan study indicating, which he said supported the idea that that accessory dwelling units would not increase affordable housing stock in the county. And Ms. Harris noted several concerns about the language of the bill. In connection with the language of the bill, I will note that the county attorney did request some technical amendments to clarify language. So what you have before you in at Circle 1 at the draft number 8 of the bill includes those technical amendments. So staff would suggest that you recommend approval of the bill as amended with these technical amendments from the county attorney's office. Just one other sort of housekeeping issue to note for you is that this bill, like Bill 19, or I'm sorry, Bill, please excuse me,
You don't have to remember the number. What was?
Okay, the bill on license fee exemptions for individuals with disabilities, Councilmember Friedson's bill. That one, just a technical item to note for you. You'll see on Circle 7 of the current bill that's before you makes some non-substantive technical amendments to Section 2920 of the code, and this is assuming. The amendments that are being made here are assuming that Councilmember Friedson's bill regarding the fee exemptions is passed, because it would be enacted, it will go into effect before this bill.
Okay. All right, so why don't we take these provisions. So the first of them, first point of the bill is to rename accessory apartment to accessory dwelling unit. I don't think there needs to be a ton of discussion on that point. The next is regarding the ceiling height issue. So this will allow for basically beams and other, like ductwork and other things, to come down a little bit from the 7 feet, which is the standard ceiling height. Is that right? So it can come down to 6 feet 4 inches. How can you?
It's still 7 feet, but it can go. The new IRC it states 6 foot 8 inches. The portion that's it's a little bit confusing in the language is except that a beam, girder, duct, or other obstruction may project to within 6 foot 4 inches of the finished floor, which is if you have other stuff like ductwork because of AC and all that, they're usually lower than what you have, the 6 foot 8 inches. So they are fine if you have something like that.
I think that's what I said, but I might have said 7 feet instead of 6 foot.
7 feet it says over here, but the new IRC
The new IRC
has
is changed.
2018 is 6 foot 8 inches.
All right, so
we
the
could
new,
also make that change.
that's interesting. So the new standard height is 6'8".
6'8".
Has
which
come
is-
down a bit.
Yes, which is the
And-
same as the door, the height of a door when you go, so that's the same height.
That's the new ceiling height.
It's the new ceiling height.
And then this will allow it additionally for ductwork or beams to be 6'4". Okay, so 7 feet does not appear in this
That was the
ZTA?
language, I think.
7 feet is in the current code, and that is not being amended by the bill, at least as it was introduced.
But you're saying the new building code allows for 6'8", but, so we should match the building code and make it 6'8".
IRC, we have all of those comments, I can provide them again, if you want.
Thank you.
It's a separate issue.
If you need.
Well, we can just amend this, just add it in now. I mean, why, we don't want to reintroduce new legislation. This is the new IRC.
Could I suggest?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, that you just reference
Stan.
the practice of the Department
Yeah, we don't,
of Permitting Services rather than put a
we
specific.
don't even have a number, right.
Right, rather than put a specific number in, just reference whatever the current practice or what is permitted by DPS.
DPS.
And that would handle it all the way into the future.
Well, you have
as
a
the
good
code-
language in there.
Well, I just proposed some language that it must have a ceiling height of at least 7 feet, except as allowed by the county's Department of Permitting Services through its adoption and interpretation of the IRC.
But that seems to me to be, I'm not seeing the match there. Is IRC like specific instances where it's 6'8", or is
It's a
IRC?
it's a very Ivan showed it to me earlier. DPS has an interpretation document that's about two pages long with all of the various.
It's a
iterations.
building code, but when the DHCA inspectors go out there, they have to interpret that, and they come across at some instances that the height could be 6'4", 6'5", and a lot of time they call us. But I think they're looking at something, maybe take that away and leave it up to us. I'm not sure if that's what you want, but right now, if you want to change the 7 feet to 6'8" and leave the rest of it the way it is, that makes perfect sense.
I think that would be preferable.
Okay.
Okay. So, Mr. Duando and I are in agreement there. Mr. Friedson?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I just wonder whether putting the specific numbers in cases like this is prudent, because should there be a change to IRC moving forward by an inch up or an inch down, we then have to come back and amend the bill. And I mean, it seems like there might be a better solution to this. But I think the broader point, I just want to make sure everybody understands what the purpose of this provision was, specifically an existing basement, to not prevent an existing basement from being able to be converted into an ADU because it has legacy ceiling heights that are fairly standard for an older basement, but wouldn't be compliant with our existing ADU law. And that was the purpose
I
of.
don't think that's really what we ended up with, because what we got was something that's really for ductworks and beams.
This would be for ductwork and beams, and if you have a case that the ceiling height is less than 6'4", they could have a design consultation with DPS, and we could look at it if something that it's possible to, to allow something lower than that. But currently, the way it is,
Or a ductwork or beam, but not necessarily for the general ceiling height.
absolutely, that's the minimum. That's from the fire and life safety.
Join you
Sure,
here.
please.
But what Dan was saying was that the IRC is 6'8" for ceiling height now. Is that correct?
That's the new code.
Can we just?
So that's a little bit, I think that gets to the issue that we're trying to really get to, which is these legacy ceiling heights. And I think as drafted, it's only a provision for ductworks and beams. It's not really a provision for ceiling heights.
Right. I agree with you. I mean, I think that's why I wanted to take a step back, because we were getting into the specifics. And I think the broader issue here is, what was the problem we were trying to solve? And does this provision solve it? And it sounds like the answer is not really.
But I think it could. I think 6'8" would be a sufficient allowance.
I thought the issue was the 6'4". That's when we were talking to Jeff, going back and forth. And we wanted to make sure, from the standpoint of life and safety, that's a lot because of in case of fire, usually.
Well, 6'4" is mighty low for a ceiling. I don't think we would generally want a ceiling at 6'4", but ductwork, yeah, I mean, actually, in my basement,
Portion of the basement that you have ductworks, that can be 6'4", but the rest of it, the ceiling. and all,
exactly. I
it
think a
must
6'4",
meet-
6'8" structure is, to me, that sounds sufficient and would be fine. Is that generally something that DPS thinks would be workable? It sounds like that's the code anyway that is coming.
Today, if somebody comes, that's how they would review the permit for the ADU or for any other building if they're coming.
I mean, the reason why I think it makes sense to put a number in, although it could be that the number has only lived five years or something like that, is that these things are very, very confusing. And if there's no number, people, I don't know, I worry if there's no number just as much as if.
This is your call. I mean, for us, we can go either way.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's your call. You want to have a number, but it's possible it changes, but I have no idea, so.
I mean, if you're given the flexibility of just saying, to your statement, remove the number and just say consistent with DPS and IRC regulations, then it can move over time and we don't have to revisit it. I mean, is that what, I think that's what you were saying. I'm fine with that too. I don't, unless you tell me there's a reason where you think you should have the number in there.
Is there any reason from a legal standpoint of why the number matters more than the reference?
I think just going to Councilmember Friedson's point about the, clarity for anyone reading the law, as opposed to then having to go to an additional source, which can be complicated to try to figure out what the standard is. With that said, the counter argument is we don't want to have to revise the code every time the, buildings to the international building standards change. So from my perspective, I would say either approach is fine. The only thing I don't like is saying that this is subject to just DPS interpretation. I think it needs to be regulation, or the IRC.
I agree with that.
Okay.
But I just think we can we can address it globally so we don't have to keep amending the bill. And no matter what this bill, you're going to have to
keep changing. I mean, the ceiling height's not going to keep going below 6'8".
Okay, may I say something? Again, this is chapter 26. This is not our code. This is, we do chapter 8. And we do not interpret anything when it comes to the building. We go by codes and regulation. This is chapter 26. This provides clarity for DHCA inspector. If they are out there, they have something to go by as far as when you're performing the measurement. If there is a complaint or they see something, then they bring it up to our attention. If they're looking for overcrowding or something, they say, hey, we were on this site and the ceiling was 6'2" or something like that. That's when we get involved.
You're going to have to interact with every single inspection that has the slight variation because there's nothing written. And so HHS is going to call DPS and you're going to have to start consulting all these different factors.
Can you restate which the language you said, please?
I'll just start in the middle. Must have a ceiling height of at least 7 feet, except as allowed by, I'm sorry, or 6.8.
Can we say 6.8?
Yeah, 6.8, except as allowed by the county's Department of Permitting Services through its adoption and interpretation of the IRC.
I think that works. To me, that works. I think that's.
You want to take out the word interpretation and use a different word?
Regulation. I don't think you want a standard that really, if it's a precise standard under the IRC, then there's not much to interpret, and I just worry about an individual inspector misusing that perceived power.
The latest adoption of.
Can't we just say it's pursuant to the latest?
The IRC,
Yes.
We have not adopted the 2018 IRC, right? Or have we?
Yes, we have.
Oh, we have. Okay.
Because it's not, I mean, to your point, and that's what struck me when you said it, it shouldn't be subject to interpretation. It's adopted standards for building practices, and that's the adopted standard that we are accepting, and so we should go by that. Then if that changes and we adopt it here, then it will change. It probably won't, but if it does, we don't have to take up the bill again.
And I would suggest adopted pursuant to, regulation, executive regulation, as opposed to, I don't know, some type of policy adoption, just to clarify that
Saying
law.
6'8" plus the adopted, or are you saying just the adopted IRC?
I would say adopted county regulations, which can then adopt the IRC standard and be updated more easily to reflect the standard.
But that doesn't speak to that issue of
Confusion, clarity.
knowing when your inspectors go in, they need to know what they're measuring against, right?
Correct. And for many years, I've been doing this 11 years inspecting homes and basements. And the IRC had not changed from 7 foot ceiling height, but there was an interpretation by DPS because some of these homes were built in 1950, 1960, where the basements were 6'10". So for IRC, where it says 7 feet, then it wouldn't qualify. So DPS made an interpretation. They put a memo out saying for basements.
Just to make sure, it's
Not a
policy,
regulation.
not interpretation, and not the code has changed to 6'8".
So since for 11 years,
Follow the rules.
for basements only, though, we've been going by 6'8", and any obstruction, ductwork, piping, 6'4". So what you guys are
Already been doing it.
right. So we've been doing that
Not been in law.
for basements. It clearly says for basements because those were the ones that were lower than the 7 foot ceiling height.
Okay.
I think I've overcooked the batter here, and I'm going to say that we should just go with the numbers and call it a day.
Just, I think for the sake of clarity.
So I'm going to join my colleagues who initially suggested that and apologize for the
That's fine. It's
delay.
fine. There is a logic to your concern. If I thought that the number in the future was going to come below 6'8", 6'4", I might say it's more important to leave it open. I find it hard to believe that it's ever going to come below that, so.
Unless we all shrink by evolution.
Yeah, well, those will be small problems compared to those that we have. Sorry. All right, Christine, so we'll continue. Next item is the
Quarterly
reporting requirement.
reporting by the executive.
I don't think there's any disagreement on that. Was this the one where there was the thought about, okay, so it's fine where it is. This section of the code already existed in relation to the troubled neighborhoods, not the troubled neighborhoods, but the multi-agency task force. So there's some language in there that has sort of negative connotations. I just want to say it doesn't mean that we think that that is the case for ADUs. We're just trying to get a reporting requirement. We stuck it in there, and that's where it is. So I think we can move through the reporting requirement unless anyone had a comment. Next one is about should the city of Tacoma Park have its own licensing and inspection regime? All right. So we already do the inspection for the city of Tacoma Park. Is that not correct?
So I'm the program manager, supervisor who oversees the contract with the city of Tacoma Park.
Give us your name again, please.
Ivan Eloisa.
Thank you, Ivan.
And so under the contract, we inspect every single rental dwelling in the city of Tacoma Park. They do have their inspection program for owner-occupied homes, but in any rental, whether it's an apartment building or single-family home or 3-unit building, any rentals we do on an annual basis. They do have exceptions for properties that have no violations to go every 2 years. Other than that, we inspect every unit every year under that contract. Under the current accessory apartment?
So they have their own program for owner-occupied homes?
Yes,
So they do their own inspection?
for owner-occupied.
Is the city here? Is anyone from the city here? No. So they do their own inspection of owner-occupied rental homes?
Owner-occupied homes.
Owner-occupied homes, not
If
rental.
someone resides in the home, and at that point, it's just exterior violations mainly. They hardly ever go inside a home.
Okay.
For rentals, we inspect inside and outside every year under that contract.
Sorry, am I understanding you correctly? Montgomery County handles the inspections for all rental properties in the city of Tacoma Park?
Under a contract, yes.
Under a contract, right. And then I think they pay us a certain amount of money for that.
Yes.
Andrew?
Yeah, so this is kind of the interesting part of this, right? Currently, we have owner-occupied homes they handle, and through a contract, we handle all the rental properties. We are having ADU conversation here, where we have an owner-occupied requirement on the property, whereby there will be an owner-occupied property and a rental, presumably on the same property. And so the question is, that, that we ought to be discussing is which bucket does it go into? Because it's not that this lacks precedent, it's a question of, which do we see this as? Do we see this as predominantly a rental unit, or do we see this predominantly as an owner-occupied unit that happens to have a rental? And I just, that's the conversation that I think that this relates to.
I wish I had a little more information from the city. So you're saying that they inspect owner-occupied homes, like I live in Tacoma Park. They would inspect my home if my neighbor complained about
you didn't cut your grass or left trash in the yard, or you have cars that are inoperable. And
under those circumstances, they come out and they say, okay, but your inspections are part of more of a regime of rental housing inspections that is more systematic, less complaint driven. Is that's
it's
fair to say?
Annual administratively every year we get per month. I create around 80 cases per month for my inspectors to inspect either multifamily, single family, or any type of rental housing
and
in the city.
So what is your view then? I mean, if they were to say to you, hey, we would like you to treat ADUs as we would like to treat them that way, you don't need to include them in your annual inspection program. Is that something subject to MOU, or is that something?
What we've been doing thus far is right now through the Class 3 accessory apartment license, which the county provides the license for an accessory apartment. In the city of Tacoma Park, if you own a home in the city of Tacoma Park, if you decide now, before this ADU comes in place, you want to have an apartment in your house, you need to apply through the Montgomery County Licensing and Registration Unit for an accessory apartment, Class 3 accessory apartment. Once you put in your application, we go in, county inspectors go in, inspect the home, make sure it meets the requirements, ceiling height, habitable space, egress, you have the cooking.
So today it already is.
Correct. We inspect it initially, it gets approved, and it becomes part of the annual inspection through the city. Once we approve it as it's an additional dwelling unit, then once it's approved, then they go to the city and obtain a rental license. They do have to get a rental license from the city, an annual renewable rental license, not through the county. We don't license the fact that you're renting it, we don't license. We basically say we approve the dwelling unit, and then we're out of it.
But will that be the same in the future?
That's the question.
So currently they have their own rental license, and they're asking to continue that practice.
They're asking to be the ones who to be exempt from this, so we don't have to do the initial inspection on approval.
Now?
Well, that was my question.
Not right now.
They're asking for this, so I'm assuming that presumes that we have to grant the permission, right? Is that, because I know there are, with municipalities, there is some.
Correct. So this is reflecting, this issue number 4 is reflecting a resolution passed by the city of Tacoma Park that appears at Circle 25 of your packet. And it was their response to the ZTA 1901.
Right, they don't want the setbacks and some of the other requirements in the law. So my question is, they need our approval to be exempt from that, right? So the land use stuff is preeminent, unlike other pieces of legislation that municipalities.
Well, that's a little different, right?
Can
If
opt
they
in
want
or
to
opt out.
establish different standards, that's quite a different thing from inspections
It is.
and licensing.
Right, but that's part of what's included in their resolution, right? They asked for that.
That's not what they're asking.
Okay.
You're right that it's in their resolution.
So this is the issue just about the inspection, and that's what we're doing.
Not really, I'm sorry. On Circle 26, Item 2, they also want to be exempt from county permitting process, which we have a problem with. We issue all the building permits in city of Tacoma Park.
You do that now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they want to be
think we
exempt
should-
from that.
I'm willing to continue existing practices. I don't know that we should really change them.
I agree, and if, it's hard to agree to something that they're looking for without them being here to clarify what they're asking. So I would agree that we shouldn't change what we're doing, that I don't necessarily want to stop existing practice. If it's not broken, I don't know that we need to fix it, but I don't know that we need to create a new regulatory regime and have unintended consequences.
DPS,
Yeah.
to do that.
So I'm in agreement.
And they may not.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I agree too. I mean, they would be here if they really wanted to advocate for it, and maybe we take it up at another time, but I agree. I think we should just stay with the way it's currently done.
So in order to continue with current practices so the basis of their granting the rental license, what is that? Is that something that we don't know really? Ivan?
So currently, they have their own rental license. They have more requirements than we do in the county. Landlords have to get certified, for example. They have to take these courses and get certified as a landlord, so you know the rules and regulations.
Okay.
And then once you're certified as a landlord, you have to have the annual inspection of every rental unit, whether it's an apartment or a single-family house. Every year,
If we want to allow that to continue, does this bill allow for that practice to continue, or does it prohibit that from continuing? Is it silent on that? Everything's fine?
It doesn't affect it as of now. It would affect it if we get more ADUs in the city, so it would be more work for our department, more inspections.
Sorry?
So,
the way I am understanding this, I think the county does the baseline inspection, and then City of Tacoma, in terms of their annual licensing, then they do the annual licensing.
we do the inspections. They issue the license once it gets approved.
Once it gets approved. So
Sorry, let me ask a question again. So today, outside of Montgomery County, if you want to do an ADU, you have to get a license from DHHS, right? Not DHCA. DHCA. Sorry. Yeah. Airbnb is HHS. Thank you. You get a license from DHCA. But if you're in the city of Tacoma Park, you do not get a license today from DHCA. You go to Tacoma Park. Is that correct? No. You get both licenses.
So you're talking about to create a new unit. So if it's an existing, you own a 5-unit apartment building. In order to rent the units, you have to get a license. So once you get a license, we inspect it every year. If you want to create an additional dwelling unit, an ADU, for example, first we have to approve it. So right now, the Class 3 accessory apartment license, it has to be approved and inspected. After it gets approved as an additional dwelling unit in the home, then they go and obtain a rental license to be able to rent it through their licensing system, and they have to be certified as a landlord, and they have to do an annual inspection. But we have to approve it first as an additional dwelling unit.
But that is not a license, or is that just a construction approval, or is that a license approval?
It is a license, not a renewable license.
Non-renewable.
It's just a one-time, you get the license to have an additional dwelling unit.
Okay.
And then it gets renewed every year through the city.
And will that continue?
That would continue the same.
That would continue the same, so we don't need to change anything in order for that to continue. Okay. So, I think we have met at least a lot of what the city is seeking. And we've saved them from having to create their own DPS, and they'll thank us, I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
Andrew, are you turning off?
Yeah, I
Okay.
clarified my question.
All right.
And I think we agree.
All right. Now, Christine, there are a number of issues that are in here that I can't quite tell if they were raised in testimony or if they were raised in the legislation. This next one is about Airbnb. There was testimony requesting that we add a provision to the code, and so you've commented on it in the packet.
Correct, although this was, as I understand it, and I apologize, I'm a little bit late to the game, is that this is an issue that has been discussed previously in the context of the ZTA 1901.
Correct.
So it was simply noted for you. It was not a part of the testimony that we heard at the public hearing.
I just wanted to reiterate something because it continues to be a point of confusion. So you may not have a accessory dwelling unit license and an Airbnb license at the same time. And if you have built a accessory dwelling unit and you want to rent that space in your home or in your yard, if it's a cottage or in your basement, if you want to rent that as an Airbnb, you are going to be required, in order to get an Airbnb license, a short-term rental license, you're going to be required to remove features of it that really make it
function as an accessory dwelling unit. So that might be the cooking equipment. It could be, I've learned, other features. It could be the connection to the house, because ADUs must be private. If it's just room in your house, that's different. So you can rent your basement now on Airbnb. If you build out a kitchen to license it as an ADU, decide that you no longer want to rent it as an ADU and you'd like to rent it as a short-term rental, DPS is going to make you remove cooking equipment that really creates the value of a separate living unit. So at that point, it's not going to be a whole lot more valuable to you than it was as previously as basement living space. So that is the functional reality of what we are doing, is that you can continue to rent house space in your house, but you're not going to be able to market it in the same way that you could market an accessory dwelling unit as your own private space with your own kitchen, a backyard cottage complete with kitchen and living room. You're not going to be able to market that on any short-term rental platform because it won't be allowed. So that is the difference. We're not going to say you must destroy the living space in your house that you've created if you renovate a part of your basement. We're not going to say you must return it to a dirt floor, but you're not going to get any greater advantage out of that than you would have gotten if you had just, made it a nice living room downstairs with a bedroom. And no one has ever said that, well, some people have said, and there's a little overlap, that you shouldn't be able to rent any part of your home on a short-term rental platform. The county council has said that you should. You can rent some parts of your home on the short-term rental platform. And what this does is it basically, what we have done with our ADU thing is essentially not grant you a greater allowance than you really already had. So that's the practical reality. I don't know if I explained that in a way that anybody who's not in this room can understand, but I think I'm going to have to keep trying probably for the rest of my life. Any comment on this one, Andrew?
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification. I think it's important, but I think it's important, like the global context of this bill and the intention of this bill was to align the ZTA with law and to put, as Councilmember Jawando mentioned in full council, the trains on the same track so that we wouldn't have the zoning text out of line with basically the regulatory regime that is implementing the zoning text changes. And so I think, we got a little bit caught up here, I think, in conversations that have already happened. There are certainly people who disagree with the decisions that were made. I totally respect that, but we also had that at the public hearing. Most of the comments had nothing to do with this relatively straightforward cleanup bill, so to speak, although we just got a little bit confused back and forth, conforming bill, but and more having to do with the broader issue with the ZTA itself, which has already passed. And so I just think it's important as we continue to talk about this once we get to full council that I think we should stay in the lane of what was intended here. This was originally my request, so I appreciate my colleagues for coming on board and for us being able to do this together, for the council president to have joined us on this, but to say that, I didn't think we should move forward with zoning text changes unless we had the law that went along with it, or else we create more confusion. It's obviously, anytime we're talking about very specific aspects of the zoning code and how we implement the zoning code and licensing, it gets very complicated and very specific. And, certainly as we've seen today, we've gotten caught up in that. But the broader context here is the goal is to conform to a zoning text amendment that has already passed. We're not creating or not attempting to create new things here. And so I think, that's why sticking with what we stuck with the Tacoma Park example and doing, what we're doing otherwise, the idea is there were certain things in the discussion that we had debating the zoning text that we couldn't do in zoning text, so it needed to be done in a companion legislation. There were certain things that were done in the zoning text amendment that have to be conforming in the law, and so that's what the purpose of this is to do. So I just want to make sure, without relitigating debates of many conversations and many work sessions at the full council and at this committee, that we stick to the overarching goal of how do we conform this bill to the zoning text amendment that has already passed the council unanimously, and how do we make sure that they are aligned on the same track? And my goal would be that they can be implemented at the same time as well. And I appreciate the fact that we've allowed the schedule to make that happen.
Thank you. Yeah, we're on a very tight schedule. I know Director DeGom is on an even tighter schedule because he needs to leave in like 5 minutes. So we'll try to get through. Good points. Thank you. So the next one, should the code allow an owner to live in either? Is that in this legislation, or is that a point from testimony?
Yes, the next two issues are simply in the legislation. They probably do not warrant a separate discussion, the 6 and 7.
It's an important point that we want you, as the owner, to live in either unit of your choice. That is a profound implication for the policy in general, so that's important. The next item is, should the applicant certify the Property Homeowners Association status? This is a way for us to reference HOA, condo association, the reality of their separate regime without taking on the job of saying we will enforce what those rules are, because we can't get into that business, but we require applicants to certify that they are allowed to indeed do it. The final one, we had a request for a grace period. So if I understand what this is that there are some units out there, we've already seen this already, that when we have liberalized the rules, there are units out there that now are meet our rules, and so they license, and they get licensed. They might have been operating, without a license before. But we have heard a request for a grace period. I guess that would mean because anyone can now come in for a license. If you meet the rules, you don't need a grace period. You just come in and get a license, and you're fine. Like, there's nothing to be graced from. But if you had a unit that was non-conforming, still, there was some reason why your unit couldn't meet the requirements, I'm guessing what they mean by grace period is that you would have a certain amount of time to make a change. I imagine you must deal with this already in a sort of practical day-to-day life. How do you handle that issue already?
So right now, if anyone comes to apply, or even if we find, let's say somebody calls and says, my neighbor has a basement unit.
Yeah.
And we don't know, we never knew until we go out, knock on the door, talk to the owner and says, yeah, I have a basement, someone lives in the basement. Yeah. We realize now you have an accessory apartment that's unlicensed. Right. And we give them a notice of violation saying you must license the apartment. Right. So that automatically is a 30-day notice to go into the department and submit an application for an accessory apartment or ADU from now on. Once they submit the application, we create a case to have an inspection of the property, make sure it meets the requirements, ceiling height, egress, all the requirements for habitable space, second dwelling unit. And based on those results, if everything is good, you have egress, you have everything is in good order, it's fairly quick. We do the inspection, we pass it, move on.
So just to comment, there's no punishment for the fact that you used to have a unit that was not legalized.
Unless you don't apply, let's say.
But if you continue to operate it, then there could be.
Correct. So if you don't apply within 30 days and it's still being operated, you can get a citation for renting a dwelling unit without a license. Right. Now, once you do apply, many times you have to do work. Many times you have to get electrical outlets or egress, so you have to get a permit. Those permits are for up to a year. Yeah. So you have that time to get the work done.
You have a long time to get the work done.
You have time, and you can always request an extension if needed.
Yeah, just to clarify, thank you, Director Nagam. You spoke with my staff this morning, and I think clarified this a bit for us based on the requests that have come in on this. It seems to me that legislative changes here would not be necessary, that you already have the appropriate level of discretion to be able to provide an opportunity for folks to come into compliance without necessarily having, being forced to do something that would appear to be draconian. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So I think, with that, I don't think it's necessary for us to have anything. I think we can, at a later date, maybe, formally talk about grace periods in general for, what they provide, but I don't
there's no
think
punishment.
there's any necessary.
That's the first thing. There's no punishment. Don't continue to operate a unit that is unlicensed because you're worried that if you bring it in, you're going to face a fine.
Right, and if there's a problem and you didn't know there was a problem, there is an appropriate time period that is allowed in order to make the change that is requested, and the department doesn't necessarily shut you down and force you to kick the resident out. They allow you to come into compliance within an appropriate level of time. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. So I think that's what people were requesting. It sounds like that is what you already have, that level of discretion, and so I don't think there's any need for us to further do anything here legislatively.
Just the final statement I would make is you should meet these codes. You know, as the owner, you should want to meet these codes because these are codes that are meant for the safety and well-being and health of you and the people who live on the property. So please.
And I think the
please
broad
come in.
goal here is to bring more people into the regulatory regime. So I think the comments that were made by advocates was to keep in the spirit of getting people into the regulatory regime. I think the clarification that we've now received based on those comments is you already have that level of discretion in order to do that. And so it really isn't necessary for us to do anything legislatively beyond moving this forward.
All right, so Mr. Wando has indicated he supports the bill. No objections. I think that's unanimous committee support. I believe we're done. Is that right, Christine?
Yes.
You're done. All right. Thank you very much for being here today. Thank you.